Good afternoon and welcome to today's Tropical Atlantic Marine Weather Briefing. My name is Amanda Reinhart and I'll be talking about what's currently happening today and what to expect through Tuesday, December 10th. Start off, we are not expecting any gales, nor are we expecting a large swell through next Tuesday, December 10th. So let's start off by taking a look at this morning's surface analysis. As you can see, the main feature on our map is a cold front stretching across the central Atlantic and into the Windward Passage. We've got 4 to 7 foot seas behind the front and then 6 to 9 foot seas ahead of the front. We've got a small cold front stretching off of the Texas coast and northwest Gulf of Mexico with 4 to 6 foot seas and then 6 to 9 foot seas in the central Caribbean associated with fresh to strong winds in the central Caribbean near the Columbia coast. So here's a look at the wind and wave forecast over the next 5 days. These charts show Friday morning. You can see we've got a cold front stretching across the Atlantic and into the Gulf of Mexico with fresh to strong winds in the northwest Gulf of Mexico behind the front. We've got 5 to 8 foot seas associated with that, higher seas with the higher winds. And then we've got 8 to 11 foot seas behind that front. We also have fresh to strong winds near the Columbia coast with moderate to fresh winds in the northwest Caribbean and 5 to 9 foot seas. And then we've got moderate to fresh trade winds with 5 to 9 foot seas associated with that. Then by Saturday, we've got the front stretching across the central Atlantic or moving into the central Atlantic with 6 to 10 foot seas behind that front. We've also got some moderate to fresh winds lingering behind that front with 4 to 7 foot seas. And then we've got some moderate to fresh winds across the central and northwest Caribbean with 6 to 8 foot seas. And then moderate to fresh trade winds continue across the Atlantic here with 5 to 8 foot seas. And then rounding out the weekend on Sunday, we've got the cold front still pushing eastward across the central Atlantic with 5 to 8 foot seas. We've got moderate to locally fresh southerly winds in the Gulf of Mexico with 4 to 6 foot seas. And then with this high pressure sitting off of the Florida coast and the low pressure here off of Colombia, we're expecting some fresh to strong winds in the lee of Cuba and in the Windward Passage, along with moderate to fresh winds off Colombia and 5 to 9 foot seas. And then by Monday, we can see a cold front beginning to stretch somewhere here along here in the central Atlantic. We've got some fresh to strong winds, particularly across the southern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Cuba, and Hispaniola. And we're going to see some 5 to 8 foot seas associated with that. We've got moderate to fresh southerly winds in the Gulf with 4 to 6 foot seas, and then those fresh to strong winds continue across most of the Caribbean with 6 to 9 foot seas. And then by Tuesday, that front is still continuing to push eastward with the moderate to fresh winds across much of the Atlantic. And then we've got 5 to 9 foot seas with the highest seas near southern Bahamas into Hispaniola. And then we've got some fresh to strong winds in the central Caribbean and in the lee of Hispaniola with 6 to 11 foot seas. And then conditions are beginning to improve across the Gulf of Mexico with gentle to locally moderate winds and then 3 to 5 foot seas. So just to summarize, we're not expecting any gales nor any large swell. And that concludes your Tropical Atlantic Marine Weather Briefing. Our next briefing will be Sunday, December 8th. And until then, have a safe weekend, everybody.